and it's going to be like, we're going to be uploaded to our Facebook page. I want to wish everybody a happy new year, happy 2023, if you can believe that. Again, Kona Brain Injury Support Group meeting. We're in our 29th year, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Rose Evelyn. Is it Friedheim? My
Friedheim.
Friedheim. From one German to another. Everybody's always mispronouncing our names, but Rose,
that's okay.
You're so. We'll just turn it over to you. And Stephanie, can you help her with screen share?
It's already activated. She just has to claim it from the bottom.
It
where
says
it says request.
It says host disabled participant sharing screen.
I did not do that. So something happened different then.
Underneath the share screen, there might be like a allow multiple participants.
Well, you don't need multiple participants to share at the same time. You just take it from me. You request a screen share.
Or could you allow me to be the host? It's not allowing me to, but if you enable multiple participants, then that
okay, just so nobody else will just do it. That'll be fine. Yeah, as long as nobody else says to do it too, that'll be great. There you go.
Thank you so much. Well, first I want to just start by welcoming everybody, the ongoing members that are here, the allies, the supporters, the survivors. I hope everyone in this room can feel the support. And Ronnie, I might need your support, but play from start. Okay, so this talk is obviously, going to be me sharing a little bit about myself as a survivor, and it is going to be more tailored to resources for other survivors, but those in the room that don't identify as a survivor, you never know when you might acquire your own brain injury. You never know when somebody else in your close circle might acquire a brain injury. And so I appreciate everyone just taking that time to be here together today to learn and grow and to feel supported. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I am going to read from a script, but only for the first 10 minutes, and then I'm going to shift more into a PowerPoint. Aloha, my name is Dr. Rose Evelyn Friedheim. I'm so grateful to have been invited by the Kona Brain. I'll just also name I am a little sick, so pardon my congestion. I'm so grateful to have invited by the Kona Brain Injury Support Group, which I'm a proud member of. As a TBI survivor, sharing my story of brain injury, recovery, and becoming a psychologist with a TBI. Oh, how do you go to the next? Oh, there we go. Okay. So here's our little flyer. I thought that was so beautiful, Karen, the way that you take the time to really make this so formal and so welcoming for others to join as well. So thank you for making that flyer.
Sure.
You might not know when looking at me, as is the nature of invisible disabilities. At 18 years old, I survived a traumatic brain injury, which led to also surviving brain surgery at 25 and 6 subsequent TBIs due to visual depth impairments. I'm honored to be invited to be here today to share that fortunately, surviving my brain injuries is not the end of my story, but instead, the lessons of learning to thrive with my brain injuries have become some of the greatest gifts I have to offer as a psychologist and as a human being. This success has been made possible with the support and advocacy of many TBI allies, including the Brain Injury Support Group, Kona Brain Injury Support Group, and everyone here in this room today. I'm going to be presenting on traumatic brain injury. This is something that's really important to me. My own brain injury experiences intersect with my passion for working with the disability community as a professional. The research in this presentation will be presented with the informed background as a clinician with my own experiences with brain injury. I acknowledge the privileges of my very blessed recovery, and I recognize the gaps in clinical services often presented to patients with brain injury. Thus, my professional aspiration is to work together with you all here in this room today to help to make future clinical services more accommodating and accessible to those who have also experienced a brain injury. Last November, I was living in Berkeley and getting ready to graduate with my doctorate in clinical psychology, where I had had my brain surgery in California, and I had dreamed of moving home and being of service in Hawaii as a psychology postdoc fellow. The biggest barrier for me was leaving my brain injury medical team and allies, which many of which are in this room here today, and having to reestablish care, a hurdle that felt impossible to navigate alone. No one in the Bay Area could quite understand why I would leave my medical team I had spent the last 8 years establishing, yet in my heart was a calling to return home as a professional and offer my services to the people of Hawaii. I owe deep gratitude to the Kona Brain Injury Support Group, all of you here today. Your allyship and support has brought me hope and confidence that others who have suffered from brain injuries can find services here in Hawaii for TBIs. Thanks to the support of each of your recommendations that have helped me in securing a medical team, including a primary care provider, neurologist, physical therapist, speech therapist, neurooptometrist, neuroaudiologist, chronic pain specialist, and the therapeutic support of my neuropsychologist, psychiatrist, and therapist. Even just last month, when I came to our group, I was pointed in the direction of Dr. Gerald Garcia on Oahu at Hawaii Institute of Pain to help me manage my neck pain, which was resulted from my head injuries. And I had previously been on a very long wait list here in Hilo, so I was really grateful for that recommendation. And I've since gone over to Oahu since our last meeting together last month, and I've secured appointment, and the procedure is now scheduled for February. So really thankful to the allies in this room that pointed me in that great direction. I was also recommended to go to the Hawaii Rehabilitation Services for physical therapy and occupational therapy, focused on brain injury recovery to relearn how to cook safely. And I'm excited to be starting this Saturday for treatment. Thanks again to the recommendations of this group last month. These TBI medical experts have enabled me to continue my progress in completing my psychology doctoral fellowship on the rural Hamakua coast of Hawaii Island, and to be able to see 3 to 5 patients a day of all ages in support of their own mental health journeys. And here you see my little service doggy, Love.
Yay.
Yeah. Oh, BJ, hi. I wish to share with you some of the lessons I have discovered through my recovery process, with hopes that it will support you personally or someone you know who is learning to thrive with a brain injury. First, we must acknowledge that each person's path to healing is unique, and some of the things that worked for one of my head injuries may not apply to the recovery of another person with a head injury. Surviving with a chronic and complex disability is a continuous recovering process and healing journey that requires constant accommodation, compassion, and perseverance to endure. The primary message I wish to convey is hold on to your hope for your dreams for your future. Sure, you will need to adapt and accommodate the process, but no one can say you can't do something, especially if you know in your heart it's your life's calling. Neuropsychologists are experts in assessing each person's unique brain and putting to words what one's strengths are and what areas have been impacted. A neuropsychological assessment is like a roadmap for traumatic brain injury survivors in understanding what accommodations might likely lead to equal access and optimal engagement with the world. Everyone with a disability deserves accommodations, and that looks different for each person. So be sure to take the time and commit to treatment with a neuropsychologist to better understand your brain and the accommodations necessary throughout each step of your recovery process. My second message is believe in yourself. Get to know what helps you and find people who believe in you too. Many people in this room here today have held that very faith in my recovery and have encouraged me through each phase. Thank you. Just thinking about Senya, right? Senya's in the room here. She was there when I had my brain surgery. She showed up at UCSF that day when I got to come out, right? Just thinking about all the people and all the steps along the way. Just deep, deep gratitude. The process of recovery may be slow at times, and other times you might get to celebrate drastic improvements. Celebrate each step of the way, not just big anniversaries or victories. Each step of progress is a true blessing, and you can improve all the time on what you learn to do. Your brain can grow a little more all the time, even when you're resting. The third, it might sound counterintuitive, but rest is the key to success. It allows time to facilitate neuroplasticity, like our next speaker is going to be talking about. If your brain is stressed and overwhelmed, it can't restore or heal in that state. Be curious and explore what rest looks like for you. Maybe it's deep sleep. I mean, I remember many hours of sleeping on the floor of different offices that I worked in, and even currently taking breaks on the floor just to take a rest, right? But it also might look like a mindful walk in nature or doing some quiet art. Listen to your body and be kind to it. It has been through a great deal and deserves time to rest. 4, do not take your mental health for granted. I see this frequently as a psychologist. When patients have experienced physical injuries, everyone is focused on healing the physical body and forget the fact that there is trauma to be healed from too. Take the time to heal from the psychological trauma of your brain's organic injury. One of the most helpful things I have learned from my own therapy has been to be gentle with myself. And when I look back at the hardships I've navigated, I have learned to do it with compassion. You did the best you can given the time, resources, and energy you had to work with. Keep enduring the process with your head held high. 5, on the topic of therapy, a TBI survivor's recovery is going to be benefited from lots of different types of therapy. Seek out support from experts in brain injury. The name of the game, as far as I'm concerned, as you can see here in the room, is the more treatment, the better, because there's so many different facets of recovering from a brain injury. Your various therapists will start to feel like some of your closest allies, like Ronnie, my assistive tech person, said today, and will help you to feel empowered to regain your capacities. Having people in your corner who believe you can heal will be essential, especially in times when you want to give up. 6, surround yourself with other survivors of brain injuries. This experience is very unique, and other people who haven't experienced it just can't quite get what we've survived through and continue to navigate. I've participated in group psychotherapy like our Kona brain injury support group here today for survivors of brain injury. I've also enjoyed Love Your Brain adaptive yoga for brain injury survivors and caregivers, which Senya joined me in Oakland early in my recovery, and group art therapy for TBI survivors, many of whom are in this room here today. I've also helped to facilitate with Christina here, a peer support group for young adults with acquired disabilities, because others who are surviving other disabilities also have a lot to teach us about how to thrive with our brain injuries. Since returning home to Hawaii, Brain Injury Association of Hawaii connected me with the Kona TBI virtual support group, and it really helped me with learning to navigate life with a disability here in Hawaii, which is different than living with a brain injury in California. 7, when you figure out your adaptions that support your specific TBI symptoms, do whatever it takes to keep their accessibility a priority. For example, I try to always have my noise canceling headphones for my hyperacusis or severe sensitivity to sound. And I try to always have sunglasses or a hat accessible for my photophobia or severe sensitivity to light. I also really appreciate the ongoing presence of my service dog Love that comes to work with me, flies to Oahu for medical appointments, etc. My final message is the path to recovery with the TBI takes a long time. Time to move through denial. Ooh, that was quite a stage in its own. Time to accept, time to understand, time to rebuild the path forward, and time to remaster new skills you're learning. Don't rush your brain. It's doing more work than ever, literally growing new neural pathways. Be humble and see your unique challenges that you overcome each day. And one day you'll realize, as I realized, that the wisdom we gain through our process of recovery will be one of the greatest gifts we have to share with the world. Thank you to the Kona Brain Injury Support Group and each one of you here today for all the vulnerability that you have shared and all the supportive resources you have suggested to wrap around services for other brain injury survivors like myself. Everyone deserves to have hope in the path forward, and I truly believe that hope is strengthened not from navigating the path alone, but to moving forward together in solidarity with others who have hope for you too. To all the providers in this Zoom meeting today, all my colleagues and other survivors, thank you for making services accessible. We brain injury survivors really appreciate your solidarity so that each and every one of us surviving with a brain injury can learn to thrive. Neuroplasticity. As the next speaker is going to be talking about more in depth, the brain is continually reorganizing itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. This phenomenon is known as neuroplasticity, and I'm going to get to share a little bit of information about some tips that might help that. So first, I wanted to offer some, books that have really offered me some important insight, like my Stroke of Insight. I remember a chapter there about, recommendations for while you're in the hospital, right? Recommendations for those first weeks coming out of hospital. Smart but Scattered, the guide to how to use your brain's executive skills to keep up, stay calm, and get organized. These types of books have really been allies for me in understanding and having compassion for the process I'm in. Happy and Healthy Brain, thinking about foods that promote brain health. Coping with concussions and mild traumatic brain injuries, really breaking down that understanding of what is a brain injury. I remember years of not even knowing the word traumatic brain injury after surviving one of my most significant brain injuries. The Brain That Changed Itself, another really great narrative of a personal triumph of somebody that was surviving a brain injury. This is also a really great movie that I recommend on Netflix. It's called My Beautiful Broken Brain. And it is about a woman who is a video documentarian, and she literally recovers. You get to see the live images of her stroke recovery and that whole process kind of coming to terms with her reality, learning what speech therapy is, moving through the uncomfortable denial and uncomfortable acceptance of the support that she was going to need to move through to the next phase of recovery. So I think that this is a really beautiful but challenging to watch movie. This is another wonderful professional. She's a medical doctor, Diane Barnes. She also survived a stroke. And Ronnie and his family came with me in California, and we got to watch her perform. And she talks about her experience surviving a stroke. And that actually led to me learning about Schurig Center for Brain Injury, which led to me meeting a lot of the people here in this room. So just thinking about, going to one event, like even coming here today, might lead you to getting to know one person a little bit better, might lead you to knowing about this or that, right? Even people here today that didn't know about Kona Brain Injury Support Group, maybe coming today to be my ally is also a bridge for you to know about this service and how we can continue to support you here at Kona Brain Injury Support Group. So again, some more information about my stroke of luck. I'll have these slides accessible, so sometimes I'll just kind of be moving through the slides, and you'll know you can go back to get the information later. So this next chapter is going to continue to share about some other organizations and supportive resources for brain injury survivors that I've benefited from, and some that I've just known about but haven't had the resource or capacity to really engage in, but maybe others would want to dive into those. So of course, the message for you all to know is that there is support available. It's about trying to figure out how are we going to get connected to that support, and what timing is best for us to receive that support. Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience has been an incredible ally for me, helped me to connect with transcranial magnetic stimulation, an intensive process of brain rehabilitation that I engaged in twice a day, an hour a day, doing kind of brain stimulation, trying to rewire my brain, and it did significantly help. Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience also offers me migraine treatment. So I do Botox 3 times every 3 months to manage my chronic migraines that have been a result of my brain injury. Yeah, the list goes on in the ways that Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience has really been an ally for me. So consider using them as a service provider if you are on Oahu. They, like I said, led me to Brain Health Hawaii. That's where I did the transcranial magnetic stimulation that helped to really enhance brain health. So like this group here, Kona Brain Injury Support Group, there are other brain injury support groups that I'm going to be mentioning today. Some of the information might feel overwhelming, so just feel free to listen again later. So Schureg Center for Brain Injury, many of my friends here today in the room are survivors that I met through the Schureg Center for Brain Injury in Marin. And I found out about this service, like I said, by attending My Stroke of Luck, that theater performance. So just kind of noticing the ways that, you know, it's like a constellation of stars, how we divinely get connected with different services. But Schureg Center for Brain Injury has offered a caregiver support group that some of my IHSS providers used to attend as caregivers. I've also benefited from their TBI Survivor support group. I'm an ongoing member of the art therapy for TBI survivors, where I get to go to weekly. They have a sliding scale. So sessions can be anywhere from $10 to $30, really affordable and really meaningful way to kind of engage in understanding and healing through your brain injury and the kind of mental health impacts. I also did COG-X, which is a brain rehabilitation class that they offer by speech therapists, which is also available through other programs. And finally, I was a part of their post-concussion education class with a neuropsychologist. That was, I had already had my brain surgery and 4 concussions, but my last 2 concussions were back to back and they were really impactful. It was almost like having an entirely new brain injury experience. I had to take a leave of absence from my pre-doc, and I had to really dive into re-understanding what it really means to have a brain injury and wanting to be a professional. And so that post-concussion education class was really helpful in helping me to learn the language around how to explain that I have a brain injury and how to better understand what services I need and how to ask for accommodations. Center for Independent Living, we have Christina here representing Center for Independent Living and the young adults with acquired disability group that she started and runs to this day. We meet on the first Sunday of every month for an hour and a half. It's for all different young adults with all different types of disabilities, acquired disabilities, many with brain injury, MS. The list goes on really, and lots of allyship there. So maybe you came here thinking you were here to support me in brain injury, but maybe you know about some other person with some other type of disability that now might get to know about this young adult group that we run on Sundays. So consider that as a great resource to share with your community, and that's free. This was one of the first communities that I was a part of. I did have my brain surgery through UC San Francisco, and they connected me with SF General and their trauma recovery center. And I benefited from attending this group weekly. And the nice thing about this group, family and friends, like the Kona Brain Injury Support Group, family and friends are welcome, right? And it's also facilitated by a neuropsychologist and a neurologist. So that's really nice because it has lots of information, just like how we have Karen Clemmy here and other really great providers that join us in this group. This SF General group, also free, also accessible as a drop-in space for caregivers and survivors to come together. So I'm just going to offer you their contact information here. Again, you can get the slides later. They gave me this traumatic brain injury resources, and we don't have to dive into the specifics, but you can just see, okay, we've got a page of mental health services that they're offering, including the Schureg Center for Brain Injury. We also have case management services that they know about, disability services, brain injury education, assistive financial job assistance, victim services, depending on how someone acquired their brain injury, different services might be necessary. So if nothing else, this might be a really great model for us to be thinking about how can we create something similar for our communities here in Hawaii. Wellness and education, right? It's not only about the clinical level of recovery, but it's about how can we help our survivors thrive. So here you're going to see, for example, Love Your Brain, a really great yoga group for brain injury survivors and their caregivers. Housing assistance, right? Having a brain injury really impacts our ability to complete our activities of daily living. It impacts at different times our ability to engage in meaningful work, right? So there might be different levels of support that survivors need. And to be honest, I've needed different levels of support throughout my recovery as well. There was a time when I was employed. There was a time when I had IHSS. There was a time when I had a lot higher financial need. I'm really fortunate to be further along in my recovery now and get to be a psychologist. But, I'm still benefiting from a lot of services. So everybody deserves support all along the way. There's also St. Jude's Brain Injury Network, and they offer different services. I haven't really gone to them too many times, so can't really speak to that too well. Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, which is also known as Department of Rehabilitation in California. It's a state-funded program for assessment and supportive services for professional development for traumatic brain injury survivors to gain additional skills for returning to work and contributing to the community. I remember when I first came out of brain surgery, it took me probably like 6 months to finally get through the process of becoming a Department of Rehabilitation consumer. But man, did they really have my back. Ronnie Gall in this room here right now, assistive technology. I've worked with him for probably the last 6 years. And we were just kind of joking earlier this week about different suggestions he had made for me, different kind of goals he had set for me. And at different times I was like, oh, that's way too much. I can't learn that control copy means copy. It's too much information, Ronnie, right? Just show me how to go file copy. Now that I have some more cognitive capacities gained, I can learn those shortcuts that he wants to offer for me, right? So just kind of understanding that there's different times that you'll have different capacities to learn different skills. They have also continued to be great supports for me here in Hawaii. I'm now a consumer of Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, and they're continuing to help make sure that I can successfully engage in employment and complete my educational goals, which I'm still actively participating in as a postdoc. I'm still a trainee, I'm still a student, and so I continue to benefit from their support. Like I had mentioned, there was that chapter when I had those 2 brain injuries back to back just about 3 years ago. And I got removed. I wasn't able to keep seeing patients at that time. And fortunately, at that time, there was a place called Services for Brain Injury where I got to go to a work readiness immersion program for 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. I was with other brain injury survivors, learning the nuts and bolts of communication, assertive communication, understanding and compassion for my brain injury, and how to communicate what my needs are in the workplace. So unfortunately, this service is now closed, but hopefully other services are going to start opening up. The reason it closed was, with the COVID pandemic, they had to still be paying exorbitant rates for rent, even though we weren't able to be coming to in-person services. So, there's a lot of consequences that the COVID had, and, that that was really hard to not be able to refer other peers to that place, but hopefully other great resources like that are going to become available, because that immense immersion into the brain injury experience and really understanding and making sense of what a brain injury is, what does it mean to have a brain injury, is essential to being able to be an advocate for yourself. So now I'm going to offer a couple of strategies that have supported my ability to thrive with a brain injury. I'm hoping this can be like a little roadmap. So when it comes to tension reduction, you really want to think about what can support you in reducing your fatigue, and know when you're most energetic, that's the time to exert yourself, right? And know what your limits are. Know that you need to build in that downtime. Like, for example, I get paid for an hour seeing clients, and then I take an unpaid half an hour break between each patient that I see, right? That's me knowing what my limits are and building in that downtime, right? And then more holistically, think about per day, factoring in that downtime, having an hour per day, a day per week, a week every season, to have that downtime as kind of a baseline. Of course, with brain injury, our sleep is really impacted. So you want to be thinking about how can you promote healthy sleep hygiene, right? So these are some different suggestions for attention and concentration. And a lot of this was information that I learned at CogSmart through Shorig Center for Brain Injury. So for attention, we want to work on not multitasking and breaking tasks down into subtasks with breaks, completing tasks before you move on to the next break. And I love this one, have a reward for completing a task. And, as a child psychologist, I love chore charts and reward charts, right? But as an adult, we deserve that reward chart too, right? So how can you break down those tasks and really celebrate those small wins like I was talking about? Organizations. What systems can you put in place? How do you do routine activities? I mean, I remember years I was living in survival mode. I had no routines, no systems. I was like, whatever I need to do today to make it to the next day is all I really have the capacity to think about. And as my executive functioning skills have been redeveloped, I've really been able to create more routines and consistency and organization methods that have really benefited me. And I definitely encourage anyone here in the room today to think about what systems are supporting you and how can you continue to develop systems to support you. So I love filing systems. I have, for me, if I don't see something, I don't have any idea that it's there. So if I have drawers, I could put something in a drawer and I will have no clue that I ever even purchased it, that I put it in the drawer, who knows, right? So labeling our drawers can be really helpful, or having bookshelves instead of drawers so you can see all the things, or having filing charts that are labeled. So anytime that I go to a medical appointment, I have a neurology folder. Okay, I know I put that information in there. I have an audiology folder. Okay, put that in there. Okay, now I moved from California to Hawaii. When I go see my new speech therapist, I can open up. Okay, well, here's my folder. This is the treatment that I've done. This is kind of the progress I've made, etc. Love, it's okay. Medication systems. I mean, I think medications, whether it be prescribed or different vitamins and supplements that have really benefited my brain, it's hard to remember to take them. So for me, I really love this AM, PM, and the days written out so that I can look and say, I mean, I don't know if I took my medication this morning, but if I look at the label, you can see here Monday in the morning is already open. Okay, well, I must have taken my medication on Monday. That's really a helpful cue. More organization, groceries, meal planning. And I mean, think about this. I'm speaking as a brain injury survivor, but everyone has executive functioning skills and barriers, right? And so all of these strategies can really benefit anyone in the room. To-do lists, short and long term. And I thinking about Senya as a speech therapist, all the different strategies I might not even know about, right? But these are just some things that have benefited me as, making to-do lists, making them fun and inviting. Appointments don't go on to-do lists, they go on calendars. I remember at the beginning of my recovery, my calendar, there was no organization. So trying to find systems. Okay, appointments go on your calendars, to-do lists go on a separate paper. Make to-do lists of what you're hoping to achieve too. Mark things off when you're able to complete them. Make a new list for the next day to eliminate what's been done, and how satisfying that feels to see all these check marks. Categorize your to-do list. Sometimes I'll make a list on Monday to go shopping on Friday. I won't remember what was on my list that I wrote on Monday. So I try to really clarify on my to-do list. Okay, here's all your calls that you need to make. Here's your appointments you need to schedule. Here's a household chores that you need to do. So then when I have that moment of having capacity to do some chores, I already have a list kind of generated when I had more resource to make that list of what I want to get done when I have the energy to actually do it. Otherwise, okay, I have energy to clean, but where do I start, right? So it benefits me from writing out that list. Routines. I'm such a big ally of routines. Routines are especially helpful to people with executive functioning challenges. They help to simplify. They help to prioritize. They help to make us so we don't have to use so much attention and energy. They don't require us to rely on memory, which many of us, our memories, I know definitely for me, very impacted. They decrease likelihood of errors, and they can really support mood and self-care. And so just like how we do with kids, right? When we have kids, we're like, okay, you're going to wake up, you're going to get out of bed, you're going to eat your breakfast. A brain injury survivor is really going to benefit from this level of structure as well. and these cues, right? These visual promptings and just the clarity about, okay, at this time, I got to get this done. Maybe words are overwhelming. Oops. So maybe it's just the images. I love this slide, making a home for things, automatic places for things, locations in your environment where you can always keep certain. I'm thinking about Cora in the room, right? My Cog Smart ally. How do you know where things are always going to be? You know, do you have a home for your keys? Do you have a home for your most important items, where your wallet and your dog leash and your phone go? Do you have a home for things that you use daily, like your computer, your calendar, your backpack? Decide where your home or your calendar will be kept within your home. It should be a convenient location that will be easy to get into the habit of using every time you come into the home. For example, it could be a little table near your front door or a desk in the office or kitchen. Calendars. If anyone in here knows me, I love my calendar, and I am a Virgo. I did like some of that before my brain injury, but with the brain injury, calendars are really, really my best friend. So I can show you my personal calendar really quickly. I love color and organization. Color for me, like green, is anything that has to do with medical, orange for patients. And then you come to yellow, and yellow is the self-care, those things to look forward to. And then let's say I have a migraine or something like that. I do mark those kinds of symptoms on my calendar as well, so that I can remember to kind of track those for my medical providers. Okay. Tools for organization. So yeah, as you can see with my calendar, it's broken into 15 minutes, because before I'd set an appointment and I wouldn't realize I need to have time to transition to the appointment. If I had a 1 o'clock appointment, I would think about leaving my house at like 12:55 so I can get there by 1. I'd forget, okay, you're going to need 30 minutes to drive there. You're going to need 5 minutes for parking, 5 minutes for getting your dog to go to the restroom, 5 minutes to get into the elevator, 5 minutes to get unlost and find who you're even seeing anyways, you know. So finding calendars that really help you to structure time for transitions, I found to be really helpful for me. And then, you know, my speech therapists have definitely drilled this into me. Write clearly, white out instead of crossing out. At first, my whole calendar was just scribbled out because, you know, things change, right? Energy levels fluctuate. Sometimes we can't prioritize everything we thought we were going to get done. So it's really important to have a nice, clean way of reorganizing when something needs to get crossed out. Here's different types of calendars. For me, I like a hard copy. Other people might like a big calendar in the living room, right? Or maybe you're a family, maybe you're a survivor and you also have kids, right? So maybe you need to have a calendar that's accessible to your kids, but also is really going to help keep you accountable. So find the system that works for you. Maybe you don't need a whole 15-minute calendar like you see for me on the right. Maybe for you just need a small little section for each day, and that's all that's manageable. So just knowing yourself and what's best for you, but also knowing that there's different options if you haven't found that system that works best yet. Learning and memory. Here's some great external memory strategies that I've benefited from. Voice recorders. I'm on my phone voice memo all the time. Like, okay, what's this? Just trying to keep track, trying to remember, trying to have an adaption that I can go back to and remember again. I also use my LiveScribe pen that Ronnie Gall connected me with, which is this thing right here, and it's connected to my LiveScribe notebook. It allows me to write, take notes, and then let's say I couldn't remember, you know, who was Ronnie Gall? Why is he in the room today? You know, I could go back. Let's say I'd written Ronnie down in the introductions. I could go back and listen. And Ronnie says, okay, I've been her assistive technology coach through the Department of Rehabilitation, right? So finding these types of external reminders are really helpful.
I'm sorry, can you point to the device that you're saying you were using? I couldn't tell from the picture here.
It's called a LiveScribe pen. It's got a tile, so I don't lose it because it's my lifeline.
Oh, I don't think we can't see it if you're holding it up. That's.
Oh, thanks for letting me know.
There you go. Okay.
It's called a LiveScribe pen. Here you see a tile, so I don't lose it, right? And my name and phone number written on it, because I would never want to lose my LiveScribe pen. Not to mention that they're hard to come by. They're a little expensive. They're about $150, but they're worth it.
Thank you.
Yeah. especially for medical appointments, right? I go to a doctor and I leave the doctor. It's so much excitement just to get to the doctor's office, all the fluorescent lights, the nurse that's checking me in, the next person that wants to talk to me. Then I actually see my provider. I don't even remember what they say by the time I leave, right? What was the to-do step? Who did they recommend I follow up with next? So the LiveScribe pen allows me to take just enough notes throughout the session that I can go back and listen after. Okay. Just a couple more
Thank you.
slides. Yeah. Sticky notes, alarms. My poor boyfriend has to hear probably 20 alarms a day when he spends a weekend with me, right? Because I've got an alarm to remember my medication. I've got an alarm to remember to call my mom every Sunday. I've got an alarm to remember to water the plants, to et cetera, right? Alarms are such a blessing and a little annoying, but worth it. Okay, here's more like automated alarms because it can be kind of time consuming to set an alarm every time you want to remember things. So you might, I mean, I've been kind of not quite at the point where I could use a electronic reminder system, but sure would be helpful to have more like automated billing reminders. I know Cora in the room is really good with this, right? Creating those systems, those ongoing systems that help us with remembering those regular things that we have to do every month or every season or every year. And navigators, if you've ever been around me, you know I'm always lost, right? I have no sense of time or direction really. And so really grateful for my navigation system. So now I wanted to open up a little space for questions. I have so much more I wanted to share, but just being mindful of brain injuries and just kind of maximum amount of information. I wanted to be respectful of that, but happy to follow up on more conversations about anything I talked about. I know someone was kind of interested in LiveScribe pens. I'm happy to talk more about that at another time or in a more one-on-one setting. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of open it up for some questions, and I'll come out of the Zoom now. But before I do, I'll just leave my contact information here. It's Dr. Rose Evelyn. So it's 2 R's and 2 E's at gmail.com. And I'd really like to stay in contact. I know BJ was our presenter last week and has this vision of creating a brain injury conference for the state of Hawaii for providers and survivors to come together. And I really want to be behind that. And I think that all of us in this room, whether you live in California, whether you live in Washington, thinking about Kristen, right? Wherever you are, we can all come together and really support survivors across the country, the world, and then in our home state, Hawaii. So I'm going to come out of the share screen and I'm going to invite some connection.
Rose. This is
Yes.
Karen. On one of your slides, you were talking about the Center for Independent Living and about the Acquired Disabilities Group.
Yeah.
Is that on the Big Island?
So because of the pandemic, many people, it started in Berkeley, California, where I was going to graduate school. I was really blessed to be working in an organization called Through the Looking Glass, which is at Ed Roberts campus. I was specializing in serving infants and young children with disabilities or caregivers with disabilities. But the other great thing about working for them was that we were located in a national kind of example of what it's like to have a disability gathering place, right? So in the same place, I met Ronnie Gall for Department of Rehabilitation. I got to go to work. I got to go to Center for Independent Living and come to the in-person support group. The nice thing about what's happened with the pandemic is it has opened up for us the opportunity to come together. And it also accommodates the fact that some people had to leave California or chose to leave California like myself, right? And so Christina has remained really committed to making the group accessible, and that includes allowing people from out of state to continue to attend. And so we have other members that have also relocated to different islands in Hawaii, to the East Coast. We have people calling in from all around. So it is technically a Berkeley-centric service through Center for Independent Living. If you're in the Bay Area, it's an amazing resource. But feel free to join our group just as a drop-in if you're a young adult or know of a young adult with acquired disability. And it's free.
Sort of another question. We've had speakers in the past talk about mainland rehab programs that are multidisciplinary, residential, and we think of one of our group members went to after her brain injury and her spinal cord injury. She went to Center for Neural Skills, and I know they have a clinic in the East Bay, kind of.
Yeah, I went there in Emeryville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something, anything like that you could share about your experience with going to CNS?
I've been to a lot of different rehabilitations and I think I was in like 4 different rehab programs in the Bay Area, that all of which included physical therapy, speech therapy, and occupational therapy. Sometimes I would go daily. At other points in my recovery, I'd go 2 or 3 times a week. Other points I'd go, like right now, I go once a week, excuse me. So even today, as a psychologist, I still go to speech therapy every week. I still go to see my OT every week. I still go to my PT every week, right? And that fluctuates kind of depending on what my needs are and my financial accessibility, right? But Center for Neuro Skills is on the higher level of cost. So that's just a factor, right? That insurance doesn't always cover everything, which is quite sad. But Center for Neuro Skills is an amazing facility. You walk in there, it's a beautiful space on the water in Emeryville in the Bay Area. They have amazing services. They even had somebody that was, and this was earlier in my recovery, trying to teach me how to relearn to drive. We ended up realizing that wasn't a good idea yet, and that I needed to kind of wait to be more ready to learn to drive again, which is still a barrier for me. So yeah, Center for Neuro Skills. Another thing I really appreciated about them was how involved their intake process was. They really collected all of my medical history and really helped to synthesize, because at that point in my recovery, I had no idea what I was going through, what I needed. And they created a really beautiful and thorough intake that helped me to know the next steps.
I have one more question just popped into my head. We have one of our attendees that used to come in person, and she talked about brain fatigue.
Yeah,
And
you could see me like getting tired, right? And even like kind of slurring my words a little bit and just, but yeah, brain fatigue is real. Sorry, Karen, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sure. So she coined this term brain bucks.
Oh,
To get up and wash my face takes so many brain bucks. And to go to the kitchen to take my pills takes so many brain bucks. To cook breakfast takes so many brain bucks. And she described her morning, and by noon, she was out of money. So her body talked to her and said, you have to lay down and rest for like an hour, hour and a half, and recharge your Tesla, so to speak. And then she had another 100 brain bucks to spend through the afternoon. Do you have any other similar experiences or strategies about that kind of that fatigue and what works good for you?
Working in the autism community, we talk about spoons. You only have so many spoons that you can use. I know that I use my calendar to kind of pace myself in that way. Like I try to write in to remember to eat lunch. I won't remember to eat lunch unless I write it in, or my dog pulls her food to me to remember to feed her. Okay, then I got to remember to feed myself, right? But using your calendar to also remember to rest and actually blocking that time out, right? Like today, for example, I usually have speech therapy at 6 o'clock on Wednesdays. So I told her, like, I'm going to be giving a speech after that. All I can really do is self-care. And she understood, right? But just trying to, I think for me, if I don't think about it, I'm just not going to do it. And if I don't plan for it, I won't do it either. So really trying to use your calendar. I mean, my calendar, this is this week, but this is next week. And this is the week after, and this is the week after, right? And so you can see, I'm already thinking about my energy level 4 weeks in advance, right? I'm already trying to, and having all those must do's in place helps me to schedule doctor's appointments realistically, or assistive technology appointments realistically, where I can say like, oh gosh, I already have a doctor's appointment that morning. It's really not realistic to set another appointment that afternoon. So I don't know if that's exactly answering your question, but
Sure.
I
You talked a
love
little
it.
bit
I
about
love the metaphor.
your food and nutrition. What have you learned on your journey that helps feed your brain? What foods, what things have you learned that help? And what things have you learned that foods are not good anymore for your brain?
Well, I was a vegetarian. And then I did that transcranial magnetic stimulation, which was from 8 to 9 in the morning, and then again 12 to 1 o'clock every day for like a month and a half. And then I became a carnivore. Like my brain craved meat. It needed the healthy fats to process all this rewiring that I was trying to convince my body to do, So I guess what I'm going to say is like, don't be rigid. Like I was a proud vegetarian and now I'm a
Keto.
carnivore, right? And my brain needs that, right? I also don't know how to cook meat. So, trying to learn like, okay, I know a lot of great vegetarian things to do. I don't really know how to cook meat, right? But now my body needs meat. So my boyfriend and I are kind of practicing learning how to do that together, right? So I guess what I would say is just don't be rigid and be flexible, follow your gut. BJ?
Wish I was there, Rose. You know, I take care of you.
Well, BJ was a big, okay, I guess now that BJ's saying something, BJ was, oh, I'm seeing James Chen in the room too. He was my services for brain injury, that 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. That was my teacher right there. Yes. Hi, James. So BJ was my in-home support service provider. He used to make my smoothies every morning. I can't handle the noise, but I can tell you what should go in the smoothie and what kind of my preferences are. And I can go and help make the grocery list and make the purchase list. But can I make the blended smoothie every day? No way. And should I drink a smoothie before I take my medication every morning? Yeah, because otherwise, will I remember to eat something? No. So BJ used to come to my house at 8 o'clock every single day. We'd make our smoothie. He'd help meal prep lunch. So then when he was off his shift, I'd have extra for dinner, right? So I guess in terms of food, just remembering to eat and creating systems to remember to eat in general, and then leaning into support. Like it was really hard for me to accept that I needed support from someone like BJ to come to my house and make my smoothies with me, right? Like, hello, I'm getting my doctorate. I should know how to make a smoothie. But with my brain injury, you try to put a blender on and I've got a migraine now the rest of the day. I can't think, right? And so it's just kind of being real with yourself about, okay, I could use all my spoons or all my money to make that smoothie, or I could allow the support of in-home support services or my partner to make that smoothie so that I have that extra money or like spoons to use throughout the rest of my day, right? So I guess it's also a level of humility to be able to say, these are my needs for nutrition and these are my barriers to get it. Like cooking, I cut myself, burn myself, drop things, forget, burn things. I mean, cooking with me is its own experience. And so also just having the humility to say, I used to be a prep chef, dessert, I used to work in kitchens and now I'm afraid of cooking. Okay. And I would prefer not. And I cook with my boyfriend and I drop something and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I remember we went to one of my friend's birthday parties recently. I convinced him that we needed to bring sweet potatoes from the Big Island to Oahu. So we had something really really generous to offer. We cooked this whole meal with eggplant. We get to the party, we get there. The second I get there, I drop the dish. Okay. So I guess it's just kind of also being flexible with the process and still being really grateful to your partner for being willing to kind of go along with your hopes and dreams and being really grateful to the people when they're compassionate and understanding.
When you're in the kitchen, I know you mentioned you have what's the word for your hearing?
Hyperacusis.
Yeah. And you use some occlusive device to help you with that?
Yeah, so what I use is musicians' hearing plugs that are made to my ear by a neuroaudiologist at UCSF. They like fit like a glove into my ear and they block out all noise. Now that's cool. You know, I didn't go to restaurants for years, and like still, if someone wants to take me to a restaurant, I'm like, let's be the last person so everyone's already gone and let's sit in the back outside, you know. But anyways, yeah, if I do go to a restaurant, I try to remember to put the hearing plugs in before I even get there, so I don't have to get dysregulated, right? So I can already, okay, I might not hear every word, but I'm a pretty good lip reader now, right? So
Does-
sometimes I am kind of blind, and sometimes I am kind of deaf, right? Not obviously literally, but sometimes the adaptations that I need to make to keep my brain regulated take away some of my input and stimulation, but allow me to engage. I see James.
Do the earplugs help you with your concentration? And you avoid being distracted by external distractions when you need to really focus and concentrate? Is that one of your strategies?
No, I actually like sound machines, because I get overstimulated by a lot of different noises, and because of social preferences and financial restrictions, I've lived communally throughout most of my brain recovery. So I usually don't have it on now so you can hear me best, but I usually have like a loud sound machine going and like the sound of the ocean to just kind of keep a super regulated environment around me.
Do you have tinnitus?
I don't.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's open this up. Does anybody else have, James, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah. Well, Rose Evelyn, it's wonderful to see you. You're still passionate as ever for the brain injury community, and I'm so happy for you. Executing everything that we learned in immersion and better. And so, and that's incredible. Just
I
kind of
didn't even know what the word traumatic brain injury was till I had to go to his traumatic brain injury school, right? 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. I didn't even know what a brain injury was. And I had multiple brain injuries. I had even had brain surgery. Sorry, James.
Yeah, no, that's great. So yeah, just
I
really
had just one more I remember being at your school, James, and during the lunchtime, I'd go to sleep in the closet. I'd close the closet door because it was just so much information and people. I had to go to the closet where it was dark and the most quiet in the classroom and take a nap, right, during the lunch break so that I could get back up and make it through the next 2 hours of class.
Yeah, no, that was I remember those times, and just going through the accommodations and things like that. It was just yeah,
Actually, I went to James's school twice. I went when I first had my brain surgery, and then like I said, I had those 2 more concussions, which was really impacting, and I had to go back to the brain injury school again. And James welcomed me with open arms and a lot of compassion and respect with my goal for becoming a psychologist.
yeah, and that's great. Well, yeah, would love to catch up with you offline. But in terms of a question, you're a psychologist now, and so how does therapy look like for doing therapy with someone with TBI? Do you have any TBI clients that you're actually doing clinical therapy with?
Yeah, I do. And also I'm a peer mentor for peer ally, right? With the different groups that I'm a member of and I help to facilitate. I remember going to my own therapy early in my recovery, and my therapist at the time wanted to do like deep psychoanalytic work. And I was like, I just came out of brain surgery. Like, I can't even remember what day it is. Don't ask me what happened in my childhood, right? So I had to shift therapists and find an art therapist that wanted to, you know, anyways, I've done some amazing work with therapists through art since my brain injury. Because sometimes words, like hearing a bunch of words and saying a bunch of words, isn't always the most therapeutic thing for survivors of brain injury. Sometimes it is. But I guess art is one medium that has been really supportive. Peers, right? Connecting other survivors with brain injury with other survivors with brain injury has been a great accommodation, really getting down to the nitty gritties with some of my survivors. I'm helping them like, okay, you want to apply for disability? Let's print out the application. Let's walk through it together, right? So really meeting my patients where they're at and what their needs are, right? Not trying to be like, well, this is what I learned in school. This is what I think the treatment goal should be. You got to meet your patients where they're at. And with brain injury, it looks really different for each person. For me, my brain injury looks really different at different stages and in different levels of stimulation, right? So I try to keep things really consistent. I try to keep things predictable. I try to keep, I try to make goals. I try to help be that accountability. Same kind of things you did with me, James. You're the master at treating brain injury.
Thank you. Thank you. No, yeah, right now gonna get into the marriage and family therapy world. So yeah, but I do hope to work with TBI. So we'll see how it
Yeah,
goes.
you never know what member of the couple has a brain injury or like whose child's gonna fall off the bunk bed. And anyways, whatever avenue, I think brain injury is way more prevalent than we realize, right? And so whatever avenue you're pursuing, brain injury is gonna come your way in one avenue or another.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
Thank you, James. Does anybody else would like to unmute and share a comment or ask for clarification? Do you have a question for Dr. Rose about her presentation or about her journey? This is the time.
I would just like to say it's been a pleasure. I miss you so much, you and Love. You are a wonderful facilitator. I have talked about you to my various experiences with my IHSS union, which I've moved up in ranking
Yes.
significantly since we've been together, taking on a lot of responsibilities. But I'm an advocate within our union, for IHSS, for membership outreach. I'm a specialist, and I'm drawn on our experiences and things that I've learned from you, watching you, appreciating you in your efforts to seek your rehabilitation and be just better all overall. Knowing what I initially when we got together and seeing the development and the stages that you've gone through to get where you are, you're just absolutely fabulous. And you look great. You look wonderful. I miss you so much. And I just wish you continued success. And I'd like to stay in contact. And I'm very interested in of a lot of the presentation. I took notes, and I would like to use some of that information and speak with you further in terms of developing programs that we're engaged in with the IHSS program and my union. So thank you so much. Love you.
Hi, Rose. I just wanted to say that all of your presentation, I don't have a brain injury, but all your organization and your filing and all, it's like, those are tips everybody could use just to keep life, a little bit more organized. So I loved it all.
Well, it really means a lot that you're here, Kristen. Thank you. And whoever
Yeah,
else is in the room, I don't know if that's Mason, but just so thankful everyone's here.
yeah.
I got an email today, Rose. Somebody's looking as a caregiver to take care of somebody with a TBI. They're looking for mental health services to support her in her role. Any comments, suggestions, ideas?
Yeah, Honolulu. BJ's not in the room anymore, but she was here last week as our speaker, and she has partnered with Honolulu Psychological Collective, which is committed to serving services for the brain injury community at sliding scale, right? And so their trainees are working with brain injury survivors. So that's one service. Thinking about SF General, that support group that I had mentioned in the slideshow, there's a lot of caregivers going into that space for support. Schurig Center for Brain Injury, once a month on Saturdays, they have a caregiver specific support group. So that's a support group I can't even go to because I'm not a caregiver of someone with a brain injury. It's a really unique experience to be that provider of care, direct service, right? And so absolutely. And then, why not go for individual therapy, right? I mean, I'm a therapist, so of course I'm going to promote that. But
Is there a Hawaii Psychological Association that people in the community could log in and view potential providers and see if they're taking new patients?
Honolulu Psychological Collective does see patients across the state, but I don't remember. I just remember texting them and kind of describing, I really felt like I needed somebody that understood brain injury. And then they just happened to have that partnership.
Thank you.
But
Yeah.
Diane, she's a clinical psychologist. What you can do is you could go to Psychology Today and do like a sub search on what type of symptoms or experiences, and maybe there's a section there as like caregivers, right? And really wanting support. And I really admire and respect that person that's willing to acknowledge that even though they're taking care of somebody that is the direct patient, that they also deserve support. And I even remember my boyfriends earlier on in my recovery, I would tell them like, hey, being my boyfriend or girlfriend, as somebody with a brain injury, it might have some impact on your mental health. There might be some things that we go through because of my brain injury that's really unique, and just to say like, hey, everyone deserves support, right? If you're going to take on being my ally, you deserve support too.